From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And this particular episode is the grand finale of the Bad Batch Report. The only sound that can possibly be made. Just some tears and a little... Was that a triumphant chord there that I cut off, Ken?
Some hope. It was good tears, like you said, but hope.
Good tears, and then a ray of sunshine as music coming out of Ken Napzok. Anyway, we are happy to be here to discuss this final episode of Season 3, and indeed the final episode of the television show The Bad Batch. Season 3, Episode 15, The Cavalry has arrived, directed by Stuart Lee, Saul Ruiz, and Brad Rao, written by head writer Jennifer Corbett. As always, story editor credit goes to Matt Michenovitz throughout this entire season. Let's dive right in. Jennifer, what was your overall reaction to this episode in this finale? Did you love it, like it? Did you struggle with it? Was it what you expected?
No, I thought it was great. It was pretty much what I expected. Although I did think Crosshair was going to die. That was my only prediction and came close, but didn't happen, which is a wonderful thing. But yeah, I thought overall it struck the right chord with me. And it was really emotional by the end. I was fine up until the coda or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I was like, oh, okay, really Bad Batch. You got to do this to me now. Yeah, that was very emotional at the end for me.
Yeah, I think emotional from lots of different perspectives, but I would imagine that it has a specific emotional resonance to a parent looking down several years for you, but that cave conversation with your Omegas is coming, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I've kind of seen Omega like my daughters in this series, and so seeing it, I was shocked. I'm like, like literally, I gasped, and I just felt the tears in my eyes, and I'm like, why am I so emotional? And because it really did remind me of my kids, and even now you could even see it through earlier part of the episode where she's spreading her wings.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and nobody's trying to clip them, which is
right.
really great, really great. Mm-hmm. You're moved by the emotion of the episode? Were you emotionally affected by this just being the last episode of this show? That this is the end of a show, the end of an era. We don't know when or if we'll see these characters again. Did that hit you at all?
No, not at all, actually. I don't know. It just felt like it was time and it felt right. And I thought that they did the story justice. And it was nice to see that the possibility of these characters may come back. Mm-hmm. It felt very open-ended. And as we know, I mean, with Star Wars, they can bring these characters back anytime in live action or animation. So this is not the end.
Yeah, or publishing or whatever. Yeah.
Or publishing, right.
Yeah,
exactly. Or video games.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the emotion was the show, but also the journey with the show of like, we've talked about over the years so much of like, one of the great parts of the show is, to me, is it's a hangout show in terms of like, I like these characters and I would watch them bicker for 22 minutes while eating lunch. And I think that like, yeah, it's not like the characters are dead, but it's like my relationship with this show, us doing this particular discussion is over for now. And we haven't really had in a while, like we as a group, the three of us didn't cover Rebels live as it aired. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time like a 3-season, fairly consistent show. You know, Mandalorian still, who knows when Mandalorian will end, and I'll probably feel the same way. But this, I haven't felt this in a little while. Like, this chapter of Star Wars closed, and I'm sad about that in a bittersweet way. Not like it should have gone on longer or upset about it, but just, I'll miss those guys. Mm-hmm. Ken, what were some of your overall reactions?
I'm right there with you on all of it. All roads did lead to Tantiss, and it was a conclusion this show really earned and made and crafted and carved out for itself, and I loved all that. And we could talk about some things that, you know, that we all knew that was going to happen, or they swerved a little bit, but I just loved all of it, and I looked at it like a, you know, you ever go to a show for one of your favorite bands, and the band closes with that song, and it's the song you want to have close the show, and you know every word, you know every pre-chorus, you know the beats, and this had the right amount big moments, and I'll say tropes, but I don't mean that, definitely not in a negative way, where it's like cool lines, a prison escape, monster rampage, and it retires into a moonlit jungle, which was great. The right deaths, the right survivals, a windswept, rainy walkway. Get out of here! Like I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed
Yeah.
that, and long falls to death, all that stuff where. Like I said, we've seen it before in other things, not just Star Wars, but it just felt right, and none of it forced, all of it earned from this 3-year journey. And I'm with you, Joseph, too. Like, this is the end of an era. I think it didn't affect me as much as I thought, because I think when Rebels ended, I had this like, hey, come on, like give me more. And then, as Jen pointed out, I think I'm just like, I don't. We have to say goodbye to this, but we can find our friends elsewhere, and I'm looking forward to that. But still with you. What a fun run. What a fun 3 years.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting them again. I think maybe because the show is about that, partially about the generational torch passing. Mm-hmm. I think maybe I was having a little bit of I was feeling a little bit like old Hunter of like, well, we'll spend time again, but it'll never be the same. The kid's older now. You know, and Tech's really gone. I finally accepted Tech's really gone. I really agree with you. I watched it at midnight with some whiskey and with my Tech action figure. I checked the runtime first, and it started off great for me because I was thrilled by the 51 minutes. I was concerned that perhaps, economic forces had told them, you only have this much time, and that they would have to rush through it. So I was extremely happy that they had the 51 minutes. I was happy that there wasn't a bunch about Force use in Ventress. We all speculated about that. I speculated about that, and I would have been happy if Omega bonded and communicated via the Force with the Zillibeast. That would have been great, but I didn't miss any of that. Instead, the episode all just kind of really felt like the song thing where you can feel the end note coming, and it's satisfying that the note is exactly what you're craving, rather than like, that note didn't surprise me. I expected it to end on a G. Like, thank God it ended on a G. It was so resonant. And I think it was a great tribute to the show itself, this episode, because I felt like this show's power hasn't just been what happens, it's been how the story is told.
Yep.
And I think there's all these great visuals and images that make you feel what the characters are feeling. All of these just images of freedom and release and catharsis. But also, like, with the whole speculation, and a lot of us thought like there could be Cantobite odds on which one of the Batchers is going to die. Some people were sure it was Echo, some people it was Crosshair for sure, right? And the show has consistently earned its joy and its hope because it does not pull its punches on the horror. And I thought that's what was so effective about this, is it felt for the entire episode like, oh, they're all gonna die. And I didn't feel at all like cheated or manipulated. It felt extremely honest. Of they're living through a dark time. The squad ain't exactly what it used to be for lots of reasons, and they could all die. They earned it with Tech, that fear. And so I think even though all the beats that happened were very predictable, the ride felt very unpredictable because the show had earned and trained me to feel like, well, that's it for Wrecker for half the episode. And that tension was even there the second time I watched it this morning, even knowing that they were going to make it. So that it was one of the things that I thought was really powerful about the episode of earning the feels.
Yeah, I think the show stayed true to itself from day one, which sounds like a white dude with a beard and a beanie on a podcast saying some kind of vague philosophy there, but it really did, and earned is a great word, and unfortunately, the loss of Tech got us put us on shaky ground and all those kind of things about who could go,
shaky air,
and. It is like the example I use of a rock song. Like, I'm a big fan of what I call pub rock. You put it on the jukebox. It's not. It is what it is, and a room of 40 people could sing every lyric, and you have that moment. This show is deep. It's smart. It's art, but it also, particularly this episode, brought it home, in that we are all together. I didn't watch it at midnight, but you feel the vibe. You felt the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the big ideas in this particular episode, but also, I guess, the whole show, since it was bringing it all home to that final note. Jennifer, what were some of your thoughts on what the episode was really about?
Well, there are a few themes that stuck out to me. One was like, are the clones dispensable or indispensable? Obviously, the argument is that Hemlock believes that the clones are dispensable, but this whole show has been how they are actually indispensable, and it kind of kept brushing up against that. And I really, really liked that, and we felt that at the end, which led into the last theme, which is like individualism and freedom. And that just was where I felt like, oh, this is tying it up in a neat little bow where he's like, Hunter says, we can do whatever we want. We can just live. We don't have to fight. We can just be, and that is enough. And this is who we are. Our identity is not defined by the fights that we're doing or what somebody else is telling us. And that was just a really, really beautiful message.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think like that's again another compliment to how well the show is constructed.
Mhm.
That moment where Hunter says that big quote, "They're free to follow their own paths. We've all fought enough battles for a lifetime. Now we get to choose who we want to be." That is borderline. He puts his arm around Omega and looks at the camera and says, "Kids, here's the moral of the Bad Batch."
Yes, exactly.
Here's what the stories of the clones have been about since season 1, episode 1, Ambush of the Clone Wars. Let me tell you, kids. But it is so incredibly earned and emotional. We've been through that journey and seen the hell they've been through in the fight and how much they deserve it and what an essential truth it is that we all deserve that it doesn't feel at all like turning to the camera and saying, "Hey, kids," even though it's so, clear and powerful. Ken, how did you feel about the big ideas?
I think the big idea was said by Omega, and it's the idea of the episode, the season, the show, and what you just said, going back to the episode Ambush of the Clone Wars. And that is Omega saying, let's complete the mission. And this sounds like I'm making a joke, and look, I am. But it's not unlike the theme central to the greatest movie ever made, Young Guns 2. And that theme is, I shall finish the game. And that speaks to loyalty, connection, fighting, sacrifice, survival, and identity, and being yourself, and fighting oppressive powers. It's all there. It's all present. It's been present, I think, from the moment this show existed and came to existence. But I like what you've talked a lot about, Joseph. This is what do we do with those clones? Those clones who are fighting machines, bred in tubes to be, blaster catchers for someone else's game of power, and now we get to take it home. We get to finish the mission. We get to complete it, and that led to a lot of other theme things. But I just love that moment, and Omega saying it just made a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, everything with Omega and Echo being so aligned. I was like, yep, we're a squad of 2 until we can get everybody else on board, and we're doing this. No holding Omega back, no stay behind, no I'll protect you, no clipping her wings. They're on the mission together. It was so great. Yeah, I realized I didn't even mean to. I rotate the action figures that I have on my coffee table, and the other action figure I had besides Hunter and Tech was they just put out a vintage Attack the Clones Phase 1 clone trooper. And the image on the card is that image from the end of Attack the Clones when, the existence of the clones is a tragedy, Bail Organa has his little fist knock on the balcony that we love, victory, you say? No. And then, Lucas and team have room to go, it's a tragedy that an army exists, but these are individuals, these are people. And it was powerful to look over and go like, oh, wow, that's where it all started. I really agree with what you're both saying, and I thought this episode zeroed in to me on definitely the idea of clone agency, but also combining that with almost all the other sort of heroic characters also having a reclamation of agency, and every villain we spent time with was very intent on not just taking agency away, but saying, you have power, and I'm going to use that to be my power. I really felt like a lot of agency versus theft in the heroes, in the villains. All of the Imperial characters see everything in the galaxy is an asset and a bargaining chip, but it's really, and I think this is a big overall Star Wars thing, it's really specific that it is not the villain's inherent or earned power. It is explicitly stolen from others. Omega throughout the episode is this sort of bargaining chip. Hemlock literally says, you know, when Omega's like, you've lost, you don't have the data. He's like, but I still have you. It's possession of something that is not his that in turn gives him power. Rampart has the same attitude towards Omega, but also the Kaminoan technology in general. He's got the quote of, who knew a child could be so valuable? Like, your identity is my ticket to power. The way Tarkin and all the Imperials we've been tracking throughout this era, but also in Bad Batch, are, you know, the where's the Empire's money going to go? To whose project? And the Empire's money is the value generated by the galaxy. Then they're trying to decide what horrible weapon to spend it on. So you got all of the villains really laser focused on, that doesn't belong to me, but I can abuse it and take it and make it mine. Which I think was this great contrast to the big picture with the clones, but also, you know, the Zilbeast, great kaiju imagery in that, but the kaiju story is, don't mess with natural powers and try to control them and put them on display like King Kong, you know? So the idea of the Zilbeast reclaiming its agency and going back to nature. One of my favorite scenes was Nala Se, you know, not just like making things right or doing something strategic, specifically going, you stole from our culture to empower yourself. And your goal is, Palpatine's goal is to steal from us to stay in power forever. Her line, my work will never belong to you or the Empire. It will always be Kaminoan. There's also this like great fist bump for Kamino, right? And for saying, nope, you don't get to take it. And then we get into all of the clones and all of their agency. But I thought it was really powerful that the other heroic figures like the Zilbeast, and I think heroic in this context, Nala Se, were aligned on that, like, agency, take it back. Ken, do you have thoughts, reactions to that idea?
Yeah, I put down the choice to be who you are, you know, and people given that choice. And by the way, I love what you said about what the Empire does, right? Take, build, and that could be attached and applied to a lot of things in our lives and history and real world. And that's why it's so, you know, you feel it. But the clones are released, but asked to fight, right? Nala Se makes her choice. Rampart makes his choice, which is a great moment, by the way. And then in the end, clones find new directions, lives, finally get to determine their purpose. Big thing. Omega chooses, I don't want to get too deep in the end now because we'll get to that, but chooses her to join her generation's fight, to do something for herself. I love the Emery thing. The Emery stuff didn't need to be explained any more than what we got last week or the journey or what we've been feeling with her, and to this thing of like, I want to do what's right. And it's what we talk about a lot around here. And it's sometimes simplified, you know, the real world can be messy. I totally get it. But this idea of like, you're not only as good, like you value, but like, you have a choice in front of you. We always have a choice, capital C, in front of us. And she's taken that choice. And there's not a lot of time spent on what got her here. She saw it. She was exposed to something that changed her, and she wants to make a better choice. I think that's so Star Wars. And it was played perfectly with Emery, where I didn't get a monologue. I didn't get the information. I didn't get it. I just got her choice that she made.
Yeah. I would love to know more about if there are other sisters or how the clones feel about cool sisters.
Yep. Yeah.
But that isn't about Emery. I agree with you. Like it was, a great minimal painting of, she didn't have a childhood. She has that conversation with Echo. If we didn't really have a childhood, Nala Se or somebody else on Kamino kind of gave me to the Empire. She could be sitting there being bitter of like, I didn't get trained. I didn't get my head screwed on straight by 4 dads like Omega did.
Yeah.
And instead she's just like, I have a chance to learn now, and I'm going to respond to it, and I'm going to be better, and I'm, going to strip away the mechanical and, have a kind, naked face.
Yeah, take the glasses off. Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was so great. Yeah, and she really does. I was wrong about this place. I'm trying to do the right thing. Really, really making a choice. Jennifer, how do you feel about the idea of the villains as sort of a thieving of others' power and all the agency displayed by the clones?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I felt like our heroes were always one step ahead. So as much as they're trying, or they think that they've got the upper hand, or they're trying to get their power, in the case of Rampart and Nala say, like, we knew what was going to happen. She was already a step ahead of him. And I liked that. It made me feel happy for our crew, which is really what we wanted with this episode. We wanted them to have a victory. And there were so many moments throughout the episode where I'm like, this is not looking good. Somebody's gonna die. Like, this is getting bad. It's supposed to get better and it's only getting worse. And in the end, we had so many great victories. But yeah, I liked that dynamic.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, you're making me think of like the Crosshair thing. Like absolutely, this episode opens up and I'm like, well, Crosshair's dead, and there's this, you know, and he wants to be a martyr in the best of ways. And I really, as someone who sometimes looks in the mirror and goes, I deserve every horrible thing that's coming to me. That line of like, I deserve this. This is a choice I have to make, and it's a good choice. It's a noble choice. But I love this you know, the Wrecker and Hunter are one step ahead of him, Jen, where they're like, no, that's not what this is about. And it's not just all for one and one for all here. We're not the Three Musketeers. It's just like, no, that melding moment at the end. A lot of people, I think, are talking about it, enjoyed of Crosshair having to lean on his brother to get the shot that saves the day, and Omega knows it. You know, she's just not sitting there waiting. She knows what to do. Such a powerful moment of a cohesive unit, the choice to come together, this connection that has been built over these 3 seasons. It was just powerful, but it all is hinged for me on this moment of, well, he's dead. And it wasn't just a subversion of that. It's, again, going back to what you were talking about, Joseph, earlier. It was earned. It was like the story led us to Crosshair earning his life. Not giving it up. Not giving it up. Fighting and connecting and earning his life.
I thought there was a great contrast between Nala Se and Crosshair, where Nala Se is kind of marching in there knowing, like, I'm Rampart or not, I know he's going to pull some bullshit, but Rampart or not, I'm blowing this, and I don't really care about escaping. I'm not going to have my legacy, you know. And then Crosshair not being like, I see my moment and I will make this sacrifice, but deciding ahead of time that that's the way he can live with it, live with, you know, the mistakes he's made. I really love that they included that. It's very dark. It's very mature of that. Like, I would like to go out in a blaze of glory, and his brother's going like, hey, come on, man. I know living's scary, but face your fears and choose to live, or at least choose to try to live. Yeah. Was really powerful, and it made me feel like, oh, Crosshair's safe. When they told him, like, no, Wrecker's not for, but it made me feel like Crosshair's safe. Jennifer, what were your thoughts on that?
I feel like they're pulling him out of the darkness, right? It was almost kind of comical for me, because like we all have these moments where you start to kind of wallow and be like, this is just my fate. This is what I deserve. And then your friend or whoever partner is like, come on, snap out of it. We're doing this together, right? It just was, but like you're saying, Ken, it was so true to the characters that it did not feel shoehorned or forced in any way. It felt right.
I think it really worked on Crosshair's sort of slow ability to express his emotions a little bit at the time. And like for Crosshair, that was a massive emotional explosion, right? And I think that's part of what makes it work for me, of like him tipping his hand, because he could have just gone in without saying hey, I kind of deserve to die. You know, that in a way that was a cry for help, and his brothers answered. Which made it really powerful.
That's really. I think that's going to stand the test of time as one of the more powerful moments in Star Wars recently, at least for me, and for those who feel it, and a lot of stuff you're saying, Jen, too. It's snap out of it. It's you know, Cher slapping was it Nicolas Cage back in the day? Snap out of it. 80s reference, kids. 80s reference. But also it was done in such a strong, not badass quippy way. It was a strong, brotherly love, family way of, no, you've earned your life, man. I love it. It's going to stand the test of time.
Yeah. No, that's one of the other kind of big ideas, and you guys have both touched on it, but I really thought it was interesting, the way these ideas of loyalty and family, and you know, the clones define themselves by loyalty, but now it was clear that they were used as pawns. They are really, hey, we are loyal soldiers, like Crosshair said a couple episodes ago, depending on who's giving the orders. So you got all that sort of ideas of loyalty. You got Hemlock saying, you know, a glaring weakness in clones is their loyalty to one another. So there's all that going on with the larger clone story, but in particular with the Batch, in this, this title of this episode that we've known for a long time of the cavalry has arrived. And, I think some of us thought, oh, that's going to be the Batch themselves. That's going to be Rex. People have joked about that's going to be Endgame with all the portals and Ventress and Sid and, everybody shows up. Fee, Gonky, AZ3 has, a machine gun blaster arms now. I thought it was really great that it's the cavalry has arrived, and functionally throughout the episode, they just rotate being the cavalry of who is the cavalry. There isn't one of them who it's not like the Batch is kind of falling apart, but Omega's on top of everything, or Omega's still a kid and the Batch has got this. I loved how much it was one after another. We're just in this together, and they were all the cavalry to one another at all these times, big moments and small moments. Ken, how did you feel about the cavalry aspect of who's the cavalry?
Loved it. You're speaking the truth right there for me, and it might not be for everyone. And again, I always want to say it's a ForceCenter caveat. Like, speculation's so fun. I'd love to have a conversation about the CX team. It's so fun. I get it. I don't want anyone to ever think we don't appreciate that or have those questions. Have those questions ourselves when we're off air about who is that? What's going to come? I absolutely thought 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 15, 16 weeks ago when the titles were announced, whatever it was. Oh, yeah, there's Rex and everyone, and Bail Organa's going to show up. Everyone. That's the show. Has from the beginning. That's why I said it's been true to itself from the beginning. That is not it. It is not pointless cameos. It is not just simply a tour of the galaxy. It's showing you the galaxy and showing you why we need to come together. Showing you who's going to come together. The rebellion doesn't really exist at this point, as we will eventually know it, or as Omega will soon find out as she joins the ranks. It is each other. That's the rebellion right now at this point, and so it paid off for the Cavalry or the Calvary Chapel Church of Orange County to show up, as if you say it wrong like I do a lot. I just love it, Joseph. I think you're absolutely right. It was a rotating thing. You got it.
Mm-hmm. They all have a quote too. Wrecker says, "We do this together." Echo says, "Clones don't leave our brothers behind." Omega says, "You're forgetting one thing. I have them." There's all these great fist pumping moments of boom, Batch together.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, how did you feel about the rotating cavalry?
It felt right because they all have their strengths. They all need each other in different ways, and they all trust that the other ones are going to have their back. And in the end of the day, I feel like that was such a powerful message, is that their loyalty for each other is their strength. It is what helps them survive. And it's also, I was so glad that they did not have Fee or Bail or any other Ventress, any other characters come into this episode. I think that would have really kind of made it feel more like a kid's show. This is very much not just a kid's show. And that's what I was so happy that they stuck to their guns, so to speak, and didn't need to bring in those other characters.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have objected to, Rex being with him or whatever, but I'm really glad ultimately that he wasn't. I think we've had other stories in Star Wars where it's constructed to be, will the people answer the call of action,
Yeah.
Because, there are more of us. There are more of us. It's a beautiful moment in Rise of Skywalker, in my opinion, because it's building towards that. That whole trilogy and whole film is about trying to keep the spark alive, and to see it burst into flame is great. This ended up being a different story, because this has always been the Bad Batch of these 4, 5, 6 individuals who go into impossible situations and make it work. And it's very pointedly not the same fun, bombastic, we can do anything, the stakes aren't that high and none of us are going to die. It's the total opposite of that, but it's still this story of this little team, gets help from Emery and from the other clones of that, but it's this little team and this little family who are ruining Palpatine's plans and saving each other.
This little team of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, I really feel that. I really feel that, and I love that moment in the Crosshair trying to punch his ticket out of here when he says a truth we're not that squad anymore is true. it's true, but instead of it, hey, we're broken, we're beat up, we're not as good as we used to be. I think Hunter and Wrecker are kind of like, we are still who we are, right? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we have to acknowledge the truth, and that for all of us includes maybe aging, a shaky hand, a bad back. It's all there. It's all there, and life, and the scars, and the losses, and the defeat, and the overwhelming odds. But we are still who we are because we've earned this thing. I love that moment. I love so much things about that crosshair moment. Clearly, but that was a little sub moment I loved.
No,
Because
that
it's
was
true. But you could take that negatively, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was one of my favorite parts of the show. That quote, it was because it was coming from such a dark place, but it's also like, yeah, you're right. They're a different squad and maybe a better squad. I did want to say about that moment of Crosshair kind of completing his arc and making the shot on the manacles. I love what you're saying about the leaning on Hunter being. It's Omega improvising. It's all them Hunter getting to be the leader. Because sometimes I love Hunter, and sometimes over the show he's gotten a lighter touch of he's just kind of been the dad who has to sigh and go, can you stop fighting in the back seat? Let me look at where we're going on the map. I need to gas up the tank. Like he's had sometimes the responsibility of being the kind of the dad. But it's great that he gets to be the leader and he knows what's going on and he's kind of calling the shots. So Omega gets to improvise. And when I was rewatching this morning with the subtitles on, I really appreciated that in the subtitles they point out what's clear on screen, that Crosshair takes that deep breath. And that's such a great moment of connection with he always knew that's what he needed to do as a sniper, but that was always a way to calm himself before taking somebody out. But then Omega via Gungi taught him that deep breath is a meditation, that deep breath is a calm and a confidence. So I really liked that deep breath was a part of them all coming together for that final victorious moment.
Yeah, you're speaking about the emotional canon we love so much here, right? Yeah, surviving Jedi Padawan from the Clone Wars we all cheered for showed up, but it wasn't pointless. He had his story, and his story goes on. He teaches Omega something. He teaches Crosshair something, and it all gets. That's how you do it. That's how you put long form, 15, 16 episode television seasons together, and I loved it.
Yeah, not just a wild Gungi cameo, but had some oof to it. I want to be sure to talk a little bit about ideas of raising kids, because there's a lot in here with kids. I think the Gungi episode is one where they highlight Hunter and I can't remember which Wookiee character are kind of talking about, like, they had to be soldiers, Omega and Gungi have to live through this hell, and it's too bad they can't just be kids. I thought there was a great theme throughout Bad Batch, but also really pointedly in this episode of sort of growing up, growing beyond that. It is that one has a huge responsibility to children. Echo's kind of pained. Yeah, those are my brothers, and they're not looking in good shape, but I got to get the kids first. There's a lot about responsibility to children, but there's a lot, I think, with Crosshair, with Omega, with the Batch in general, that's about making us feel how far they've come. Jennifer, how did you feel about what this episode or what the show in general is kind of saying about rearing kids, protecting kids, growing up, all that sort of idea?
I think at some point that you teach them what you can teach them, and then you have to make them feel empowered, like they can do it on their own, which is what we see Omega doing. And I loved the dynamic with her and the kids. It felt like she was a big sister to them. The way that she was talking to them is very much like a big sister, which I've seen with my kids and their friends who are big sisters. They know how to talk to the little ones and to make them feel safe and secure, right? But they still keep it like kid friendly. Like, I just really appreciated that. She did not feel like an adult. She didn't feel like a tween or anything. It very much felt like nurturing and sweet and kind and like, you can do this. Come on, I'm here to help you. Take my hand type of attitude. But yeah, it's just really, I would love to watch it with my kids. Although there are a couple parts in this episode where I was like, wait, are we going to see his hand get cut off? Like, this is like brutal. Oh my gosh. So
yeah. I could almost feel the pass-through notes on, let's not have a scream or a sound effect there, because, it could have been much more visceral, right? The sword comes down and you know what happened, but there isn't a big echoing meaty thunk like there could have been.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Shout out to Nikki Kumar of the Imperial Podcast, who about 2 weeks ago tweeted out, "I love Crosshair. He's like my Jamie Lannister." And then today he's like, "I didn't mean that, but I got it." But it works so well. Yeah, it works so well.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating, complex moment of, is this a loss, or is this a, symbolic of cutting away some of the trauma? Like,
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not saying it's a positive thing that he got his hand cut off, but on a thematic level, it was really fun to unpack. Jen, I really agree with you. I loved this portrait of Omega coming so far because she was being the leader of this little squad that had to be a squad. And we talked in the first episode where she met the kids that she wasn't just like, all right, information, right? That she got to know them, that she got to let them feel comfortable. It showed them that she was willing to take chances, and then that it ended up okay and build up their bravery. And then this episode, it feels like was so paying off of teaching them to be proactive, teaching them to have agency, because those kids felt like they have no agency. They're stuck there, they're trapped, there's no way out. And this was so giving them the agency of like, you can do it. And Omega's, saying, I've been trained for this, and kind of implying to them, like, you can be trained for this too. You can learn how to do it too. It's not impossible. In the great moment with Jax, where she's like, yeah, Record's afraid of heights too. So it's all just a great portrait of Omega is a leader of this little squad. Ken, did you have thoughts on Omega's growth, her leadership?
Absolutely. I put down this idea of Omega growing into this team being the Bad Batch, going from the early days to Echo having this great moment of, that's what I would have done, because they're all kind of, they know, and it's not that they're all in line in this, but there, and have it play out with this new batch, the Kid Batch sitting there, which was a great moment, knocking over, the all the signals, Baron just kinking, yay, loved all that. But I think it made me think, and what you both are talking about is this show, upon rewatch, like any show, when you invest in it and you go back, it's not just about signs of what's to come. I think you're going to have more stronger emotional connections than you might think as a viewer to some of the early moments when you first meet a character. And now and now when they're looking out a window going, what's out there for me? You can almost be moved going, I know it now. And I'm going to see everything, every step along the way differently. I think the show's going to be rewarding.
Yeah. To see those early moments where Omega is scared, or the earlier to middle moments where the batch is so scared for her that comes so full circle. I love that in this mission, trying to get out, that like I said, nobody's clipping Omega's wings. Like, there's no doubt she's a member of the squad, because early on there was the like, we'll train you, and then maybe you can do this, but and the whole mission is, in theory, is there to protect her, but she's got to rescue the kids. She's got to rescue them. I just love that Echo in particular, who's always been a little bit more, to me, coded as the uncle, who's like, your dads are worried, but here, play with fire, kid. I trust you.
Totally is.
Echo's always been coded a little bit more as the uncle, so have him call her Havoc 5 and be like, it's your call sign. You're a part of the squad. Are you ready? Let's complete the mission. Omega is so put across as like a full member of the squad, and they're rescuing each other. She's not the one to be rescued. They're rescuing each other.
It was again, not to hammer the point too far, but like, I just her taking control of the new squad, her being there, and it's not as simple. Princess Leia isn't simple, but it's not the self-rescuing prince. It's so 3 seasons earned of that moment of course they're one step behind her on her own rescue that she's leading. That's what it should be.
Yeah. And I think that whole sort of growing beyond theme, it was great then to see Omega fully as an adult. I think that was one of the beautiful things about the Coda, because she's been growing towards adulthood. She's depending on how long you think the Bad Batch show has been going, she's probably around 15, 16, maybe a little younger, whatever. So this has been a story of her becoming an adult, but I thought it was great then to actually have the reward of like, she's a fully fledged adult, and we can talk canon wise when we think that Coda is, because that's some fun speculation for me. But like we were saying, Ken, that generational idea of, this is my fight. This is the fight of my generation, and I can't ignore it. And great, I'm ready. And then Hunter saying, I know you are, but I'm not, was like, just heartbreaking. Hunter is some who's been kind of the most worried since like the second episode, the third episode, that he has the conversation with Cut and Sula Quain. It's like, well, she is fully an adult, and now I can fully admit to myself I'm the one who's scared to have her leave, but she'll be fine.
Yeah, that ending, Jen, we got to find out a little bit more of what made you cry, maybe make you cry again. But before that, I just loved everything about it, and it's you touch upon it there, Joseph. It is Star Wars to its core. It's pass on what you have learned, right? The generational change, but generational mentoring is part of it, and that's a clear connection to so many of the themes in the sequel trilogy and this the sequel trilogy era, because it's also passing it on to the fans. Not that we can't enjoy this and still don't, as more gray comes into my beard, but this is your fight now is such a powerful thing. And I handled that beautifully and left so many open questions. Yeah, we'll speculate later, but I made my choice. I want to do more is such a powerful kind of final line or final thought in this show.
Jennifer, did you have more thoughts on that coda and kind of how it ties into Omega's overall journey?
I think what was so powerful is I've been having this recently where I've seen kids that I've known since they were really little, and time has passed, and now I see them, and they're like bigger kids, and they don't really have the baby face anymore, and they're acting more mature, and it is a strange feeling. And here we've been with Omega from the beginning, and to see her now become this adult, it made me feel that same feeling that I've been feeling in real life, where I'm like, who is this adult? Wait, what? She's not this like spunky little kid. Now she's like, she is ready to fight and she should go off, but I don't want her to die. And what is going to happen to her? When are we going to see her story next? I had all these thoughts, and that's why I think I got so emotional, because it felt very much like very Star Wars Luke Skywalker, right? Ready to go. But here she has a dad that says, all right, yeah, I don't want you to go, but you can go, kid.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
like
the
emotionally healthy Uncle Owen.
Yeah.
I got my basket weaving business up on Pabu, and I need you for another season, Omega.
Right. He's the dad that is like the healthy dad, the like well-adjusted dad who's like, yeah.
It's totally like a coming of age movie where like your roommate was going to drive you to college, but dad meets you in the morning with his cup of coffee. Like, I'm driving you to college, and I'm getting you in that dorm room, and I'm driving away, kid. It is so good. Yeah.
I moved with you both there, but Jen, you're striking some chords, and it's my favorite Beatles songs is "Baby You're a Rich Man," and I've said this line before because it's if I don't have tattoos, but it might be one I'd tattoo. It's now that you know who you are, what do you want to be, and that's such the final strum of the guitar in that coda, so powerful. I think I'm even getting moved now just because it's all of us. And guess what? You still sometimes have to figure it out, and Hunter has to figure it out now. You know?
Right.
Yeah,
Love
it. There's this one other kind of idea of growing beyond. I think some of it is really crystal clear with the generational change and Omega becoming a full adult and all that. But I was really, really agreeing what you were saying earlier, Ken. I feel like the entire batch is shown to have grown beyond what they were when we met them in the Clone Wars season 7, and even at the beginning of the Bad Batch. We can talk about this more later. I still feel a little like CX2 was maybe put across a little bit to in a way that invited wondering what's under the helmet. But I ended up not caring about that at all because I so loved what they did with all these CX troopers, right? It was another of Rampart sort of acting like this is his power, but he just tortured Regs, cloned them, looked at, I still think he maybe had some, samples from the batch from various fights and conflicts, and whatever the technical answer is, whatever, I'll wait for the StarWars.com article or whatever. But functionally watching the episode, I was just really moved by this team of CX troopers just being this mirror to where the batch started. We were introduced to the batch in a lovable way, but on a functional level, the Bad Batch in those first Clone Wars episodes were very similar to this team of CX troopers. They were hyper efficient, hyper violent tools of a state being sent on a mission that they have no agency about, and taking most of their identity and pride in their ability to efficiently perform violence. And to combine that with, Crosshair's sad, hard Clone Force 99 died with tech. And I think that's right. I think that there was something where, like, we're an unbeatable team. We can always figure out the odds. Even Crosshair will come back to us eventually. We can protect Omega no matter what, even though we're scared. And then they lose somebody, and they're never quite the same. It's not that I think they're like so old. It's that the missions aren't the same, and what they care now is about family. And a mission is something they have to do for family, as opposed to their identity. So to see them come into violent conflict with these Rampart's or Hemlock's new clones, who just feel like they're nothing but violence, was this great contrast to show us how far the batch has come. Ken, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was my final kind of theme or stake I want to discuss. I put it down as the unique versus the conformed, and how we got Clone Force 99, and I agree with you. I think, again, Crosshair, I think, is right from a certain point of view about what's going on. But Clone Force versus 90 versus Dark Clone Force 99, and again, we might be discussed for a while. Like, I'm with you. That's why I always put that caveat out there. Speculation is absolutely fun and something that's natural. Like, don't ever get my grumpiness sometimes. I get a little upset at the Easter egg kids and the checklist kids out there who just want the answers in terms of an answer to fill out a form. There was something to it, but I think it was coded in the end. There was that one shot that kind of makes you got a wrecker, you got one with tech goggles, that's what's going on here. It is the shadow of what they could have been. It is the choices. I've acknowledged sometimes, like, ForceCenter changed me in so many wonderful ways. I give you all credit for helping me grow here, just discussing this silly space saga. One wrong turn along the path, I'm an angry car guy, right? I'm pounding my fist and screaming at Kathleen Kennedy. I had those genes in me, and it's not about the genes. It is about your choices and your approach and your growth and your change, and that I thought was not just a fun fight and action moment. It was that. It was what you're saying, that great shot of what we could have been, but what we are, and how powerful what we are is something I'll take from this show.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Jennifer, what are your thoughts on the CX troopers, the Mad Batch, the Dark Bad Batch, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, I love that. Like Bizarro Jerry, right? Remember the sample episode? It just kind of felt like that. Like, that's such a great way to put it, Ken. Like a mirror of where they could have gone, what they were. And that's one of the reasons why I wasn't drawn to this show initially, because it kind of had this like 80s macho Rambo kind of feel for me personally. I know that wasn't necessarily like that for a lot of others, but so I was like, and so to see how these characters have grown and how I've grown along with the show and kind of embracing these characters, it's fun. I could have been like that Dark Force CX clones, pounding my fist. I don't like this show. No, but I've grown to love it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. We've talked about A-Team, others references. I mean, Hunter is really coded as with that that red bandana and that skull on his face. Yeah. And then, they're violent John Hughes. You got the nerd and the cool guy with the toothpick and like all this stuff going on with them. And in their first appearance in the Clone Wars, there is empathy. They meet up with Echo and they warmly, welcome Echo into their family, and they want to save him. There is empathy and heart, and we meet him in the beginning of Bad Batch again, and find out that they have a home, and Wrecker likes coming home to his Lula doll, where all that started. So we see that they do have these seeds of connection and humanity and empathy, but I feel like almost it was like very purposeful. Like sometimes in Star Wars, I think a character gets thrown out there, and then eventually creators go, wait, we need to add to that. Like, I think Boba Fett was supposed to be a minor character, then people fell in love with this badass, and then George Lucas like, no, he's a human with a perspective, and the Tuskens were supposed to be a threat, and then eventually like, no, they're humans with perspectives. And it feels like the Bad Batch was almost constructed to be like, we go through this cycle sometimes on Star Wars where we introduce cool badasses and then eventually get around to being like, no, they're human. And this one almost feels like, let's trick them. Let's not even trick them, but like, let's set up badasses and then immediately have their entire story be about they're humans with perspectives and ability to grow.
Yeah, and strength coming in different forms, right? And not that physical strength and that fighting skills. That's good. Yeah. It is. Let's redefine what strength is, and add to what the definition is. I agree with that. I have some thoughts on the death of Scorch. I'll save for favorite moments, but it ties into maybe stuff here. But
yeah, no, absolutely. Jennifer, any other big picture thoughts that you wanted to talk about?
No, not that I can think of. Yeah.
Okay. We'll be having time to talk about a lot more stuff with Canon and favorite moments and all that. Ken, do you have any other final big picture thoughts?
That was it, man. You let me wax poetic about being angry in a car, and no, I appreciate it. Wonderful stuff. Big things that are still going to be, need to be unpacked. Not just in this episode and this show. I think this we'll do some maybe roundup end thoughts towards the end of the program. But this just really brought it all home in such a satisfying way.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think this episode made me feel good about aging because sometimes you slow down, but sometimes you have other skills, and I think that was so there for me with this whole the Bad Batch being mirrored by those troops. Like, yeah, we're gonna have to be clever and work together to take them out. We're not as fast as we used to be, but what else have we gained now that we've become families?
Love that.
It's hey, it's a commercial for aging gracefully. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we will be back to discuss even more canon, favorite moments, all that kind of stuff. The future of the Bad Batch. Back in a moment. And we are back. We are going to discuss some of the canon and lore and connections to other stories and future stories, all that kind of stuff. Looking at real big picture stuff, there's some fun things like, oh, hey, cool. The TK troopers have some red Coruscant Guard, armor when they're with Tarkin. Cool. We're going to look mostly at some of the big picture stuff, which I want to start with. Hey, really big to the general Star Wars story is that whole Project Necromancer thing. As we suspected, Project Necromancer was derailed and Mount Tantiss is shuttered. Ken, were you happy with the way that all played out? Kind of as predicted. It seems like maybe Emery knows a little bit about the project and maybe told Echo, but in general, our characters don't have the full big picture. They don't know what they stopped. Were you happy with all that?
Very happy, and that allows, I think, Omega and all the clones and the kids to go on and live lives, right? There's maybe less record, if not no record at all, of who they were, what they meant, and all that stuff. Those who know, and I agree with you. I think Emery, if they need to pick up the thread, but it was, and again, I don't mean this as I don't mean this in any negative way towards any fans or anyone engaging with it. It's we kind of got a feeling of what Project Necromancer is, and that's what you need. And does it connect? Yes, of course it connects. And now we know it's derailed, and now we know it's sidelined, but we know the research goes on. The work continues, Galen. It's kind of what we need. And I thought it was also a comical moment of Rampart. Now tell me everything. Fade out, cut back in. Oh, wow, that's a lot. Yeah. That's all we're gonna get for this moment in time. And as far as it ending, we had talked about, does Palpatine send a team to destroy it? Does Tarkin destroy it? Yeah, Tarkin comes in, takes the printer ink, takes the paper, takes the toiletries, and takes all the funding. That's such a Tarkin thing to do, such an Imperial thing to do. Project Stardust, yay, we get it, love it. That's what his number one goal is. I love that it was that, because we got the Camino destruction, we got that the bombing from the air, all that stuff. But this was so perfectly Imperial to me.
Yeah, I love that it was laser focused on the destruction of the information and the destruction of Project Necromancer. And the Rampart moment was very funny, of being like, we all feel like that as fans sometimes. So like, tell me everything about Omega Force sensitivity with the blaster. Tell me everything about how Asajj survived. It was a great moment, and I did translate the Orbesh. It was a transfer in progress. He gets all that information on his data pad, but one would assume his data pad explodes. But maybe someday we'll have shots of Dr. Pershing sifting through the wreckage and picking up the cracked data pad and going, Project Necromancer?
The data pad will have spider legs. It just walks and survives.
It wanted to live. Jennifer, how did you feel about the way Project Necromancer ended? How much information we got about it in the show? All that stuff.
It was very well done, because I'm like, this is going to be a big thing hanging over everyone's heads, that if they don't answer it, fans are going to go crazy. And they made it very clear from the way that Tarkin's like, we're going to do all the funding to Project Stardust, audience. You might remember that, right? It was just telegraphed, like no mystery there. There's one piece. And then obviously Palpatine never learns about how valuable Omega is, because Hemlock dies, which means that she can go on and live her life. She's not going to be hunted down, right? Which opens up more stories for her. And then obviously Project Necromancer gets resumed after Tarkin dies, much later with the New Republic. It all just, it fits perfectly. Well done to those canon threads.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so happy we got to see some Emperor, got to hear some Ian McDiarmid, and you know, I had speculated wildly based on some of Hemlock's dialogue about, you know, we're researching the clones and we think we're going to have a way to resist people rebelling. I really thought maybe they'll go into some direction with trying to weaponize inhibitor chips and take away people's agency, and I thought that would tie in well. I ended up really liking what they did with Palpatine, partially because it's like this big victory for the Bad Batch. They don't even know how big it is of what they stopped. But I think it's just like this very sad portrait of the Empire, of like, this is the most important thing to the Empire, is this one guy living. Everyone is disposable to him. All of this is happening. Everybody's lives being affected because Palpatine's like, I just got what I wanted. Control of the galaxy, and I'm already afraid of losing this power, and I needed, you know, a new body, and then just the basics of like, if you clone a force sensitive person, the midi-chlorian count degrades, and Omega's got this weird property that it's a binder. Like, great, that's I thought we got just enough information to be like, that's tantalizing, but the time we spent with the Emperor, I'm glad we didn't cut back to him learning, you know, on Coruscant, you know, because it kept it, we got a little tease of the Emperor, and it kept it all about this show, these characters, Hemlock's desire for power via the Emperor. It, you know, it kept it so focused in a great way. And I really did love the Mount Tantiss will be shuttered. It's not blown up. It's not torn apart by the Zillo Beast. It's shuttered. So my other kind of canon question here for you, Ken, is Mount Tantiss, you know, has its origins with a Thrawn storytelling in EU stuff. Are you expecting, wanting, caring if Mount Tantiss gets unshuttered in the New Republic era?
Yeah, there you go. That's Filoni's movie. The retaking of Mount Tantiss. There you go. No, that would be fun in a way. I wasn't as connected to Tantiss as others, obviously, but I really love what they did with it. I really love what it stood for, and you know, in a bad way, and how and where it is. So yeah, I could see it coming back. The lights come on, click.
I mean,
blow the cobwebs off.
Yeah.
Walk through the Zillo Beast holes. I love that. Yeah. I think Mount Tantiss is just like it's a great design. To me, it's so imperial. It so matches with everything Star Wars, but it is also just leaning into the pulpy side of like, these are great themes. We can learn from them. But this is a mad scientist laboratory hidden in a mountain because an evil wizard wants to throw his essence into a second body. Like, I love how pulpy it is. So I really love Mount Tantiss, and I would be happy to see it come back in live action and continue that connection between, like, you know, I love the stuff where you don't need to be in the bubble, but if you are in the bubble and Mount Tantiss shows up in, you know, Filoni's movie and it's got a big Zillo Beast hole in it, like, that'll be cool. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit. You both mentioned about Tarkin and Operation Stardust. Just kind of reflecting, like, on our Gen X roots. For years and years and years, the Death Star was, you know, we would get little drips and drops in a video game that was maybe canon. We didn't even use the term canon, you know. When the Dark Forces video game was coming out, that was not a common word to use for pop culture. As late as 2015, I was doing stand-up bits about, like, how does Palpatine communicate to the people about the Death Star? Like, that's public funding, and he's naming it the Death Star. What is he? What is he doing here? And now we know so much about the Death Star, the politics, the tech, the competing projects, Thrawn's Defenders, this thing, the Project Necromancer. Jennifer, how do you feel about now being just like steeped in Death Star creation lore?
It's a lot, so much so that I really can't even keep track of what I know and what is canon, what is stuff I've made up from my tiny Death Star game. I think probably the thing on my mind would be like obviously Rogue One. And what was the book? I can't even think about it right. What was
Catalyst?
Catalyst, thank you. Catalyst. So that's kind of like where I my brain goes to. But yeah, don't ask me anything about anything. You're like, I don't know. Sure.
Have you the bits and pieces of Death Star storytelling? Like in you've never had any sort of resistance when like Rogue One or Rebels spends time on it. Are you like, cool, great? You're attached to the emotional story and not invested in all of the logistical pieces of the Death Star's history?
Yeah. That's when we start to get into the red tape, which I'm not so good at keeping track of, right? Is all the decision making. No. I just go with what's on screen. And I was actually very resistant to the Rogue One idea of like, why are we going to learn about this, right? But I loved it. And so, I'm open to it all.
Yeah, I think I'm enjoying every time it pops up, it's an emotional story. When it's Saw Gerrera, figuring out the Geonosians were all murdered. That's an emotional story, and that's about the Geonosians. Obviously, Rogue One is an emotional story about, Jyn and her mother and her father. And this all feels emotional because it's about Hemlock and Tarkin and Thrawn all vying for favor in the funds and everything. Ken, how do you feel about going from the Death Star is something you wonder about and joke about in a bar with your buddies to I have a canon timeline of everything about the Death Star.
Yeah, it's Kevin Smith's Clerks conversations popping up, and that's what drove us. And it's fun, and I think you can still have all that fun with it. I do enjoy it. I understand sometimes it does seem like an over answer. I understand even some pushback on, all right, so Galen Erso put in the little flaw in the Death Star and everything, but it's like I look at that as that's a decision rooted in love and redemption and hope, and there's some themes to that, not just a simple checklist answer. But again, I understand some of the pushback. I don't need answers to everything too. What I'm fascinated with is just much like I don't tire of Order 66 moments, right? Of another angle on that moment, because it's huge. It's history. It's galaxy changing. It should be studied. I want an in-galaxy documentary about Order 66. Yeah. And this is that for me as well, where how it's used. It is power. Like, again, this is perfect. This is a perfect Tarkin moment of I want the glory. My project's the best. I had to, Thrawn's going to eventually emerge, and his project's going to be competing with this. I got that annoying Galen Erso in my way who tries to take credit. I got Orson Krennic, I should say, that's even more in my way. And it's just kind of this office politics on a global galactic scale that's deadly and horrible and about fear and intimidation. So I like tracking it. And it's, in terms of growing up, it's like we all had that silly little question of how do they build the second Death Star so fast, especially after Revenge of the Sith, wait, they just started it 19 years ago? What took so long? And again, it's not just a checklist answer. It's like, here, the tech, the infighting, the funding. I agree with you and understand with you, Jen, of, you could, there's a lot of red tape to track, but I don't mind going back to it and revisiting it because it literally hangs over the galaxy.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, I enjoyed the little bit of the Death Star cameo in this. And I also like it from Tarkin's character that he is simple and direct, and we know from book stuff and that he comes from this planet that prides itself on dominance, and I love that his solution to the galaxy is point a big gun at everybody. In fear, we'll keep the local systems in line. Point a big gun at them, period. Speaking of places that don't have a big gun pointed at them, So it turns out Pabu is safe.
Mm-hmm.
There was some violence there. I haven't spent any time on the internet yet, other than seeing people's happy reactions last night to a post I made. So that was great. But I wonder if it's going to be a conversation of why did the Empire leave Pabu alone? So I'm kind of taking it as it was Hemlock and his agents who tracked Omega there, and it isn't a widespread awareness because Pabu seems to have survived. Ken, how do you feel about Pabu's safety and not being an Imperial target?
Really happy to see it in a weird way. Took a little exhale of relief there because I think a lot of us had that thought at the end of season 2, like, well, this would be a good home, right? And we all had the fear. We all had the fear that Molly Damon struck at all of our hearts when she said, "Wait a minute, those awnings are the same." But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. In world and canonically, there's a lot going on in the galaxy. There's a rebellion that's picking up speed fast. Who's going to be like, wasn't there some like relaxing island planet that people went to? And so it works for me. And in a galaxy that's feeling all the suppression and destruction and war, isn't it nice that a nice little island with a great group of people can just be okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Jennifer, how did you feel knowing that Pabu is safe? Maybe they've had some strife in the years between the end of the show and the coda that we saw with Omega more grown up. Maybe they've been invaded 7 times. We don't know. But they survived. How did you feel about Pabu surviving?
I liked it. And wait, so the beginning, the earlier part where they go to Pabu, I was a little taken out because having just been to Galaxy's Edge, it looked like Galaxy's Edge. Like the little cart where the vendors were and like just the coloring. I'm like, this looks like Batuu. Obviously it's not, but I kind of did wonder if they put that in there as like a little nod. Check out Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland for only $79 if you purchase 3 days. Anyways, yeah, I liked it. It made me happy, and it makes sense, obviously, that they would not be going after Omega or anybody after Hemlock dies.
Yeah, I think I only feel bad about it from the perspective of Andor. I love in Andor when he's trying to convince his mother Marva that we can go somewhere warm and easy. And then he goes to I can't remember whatever the beach planet is, and
Niamos,
Niamos, and just tries to have Pizos in a fling, and even there, the Empire's like, so I feel bad for Andor. Like he didn't know about Pabu. He and Marva could have just went there. They could have opened a space sushi stand, charged 79 credits for a 3-day trip, and had it warm and easy. But no. And again, for clarity, like, we don't know what hell Pabu's been through in the intervening scenes. So it survived is all we know. I want to touch briefly on Echo, Emery, and Chuchi. Echo says that and Emery agrees to come along off to Pantora to work with Senator Rio Chuchi. I think to advocate for clone rights, but also to help build the rebellion. Because we had that little scene with Chuchi early on in this season where she was meeting with a separatist. And saying maybe we might be on the same side now, worrying about the Empire. So there's that little hint of the one of the other threads of the beginning of the rebellion. Ken, how did you feel about that sort of resolution for Echo and Emery?
I absolutely love this idea of E&E. I'm going to call them E&E, Echo and Emery, and throwing Rex in there and everything, the whole team. I love that look between Echo and Hunter, just kind of a, hey, it's all right. We went through a lot, but there's more to be done. And Emery, like I said earlier, I love the way they handled it in terms of her redemption arc and her story, but there's absolutely a lot of questions. I hadn't really thought about that, Joseph. You pointed up earlier episode of, she's one of the last ones to have a lot of knowledge. And that doesn't necessarily make her a target, but it makes her information important, valuable, and this idea of I know the path hangs over it there. I'd even say I'd pull some of that out of it. Totally get it. But it was a good team, good handled, and it wasn't heavy handed. Right, her redemption was important and poignant, and not heavy handed to me. So I really E&E. They're on the pro. That's the show I want.
Yeah, yeah. Jen, did you have an emotional reaction to Echo and Emery going off to maybe rebel a little bit with Chuchi?
And I liked their moment together. I think he like put his hand on her shoulder or something.
Mhm.
It just was a really sweet moment where I was like, is it more like brother and sister? Is it like love interest? It was just funny that my mind went there. I was like, oh, they could be good for each other. They could be good partners.
I wonder if it's like just decades of being conditioned by rom-com of like the
Yeah.
glasses. There's something about the glasses off that just made her like so like vulnerable and open, and like it really was like there's a lot I want to know about Emery, and now I want to know how the brother and sister thing works in this context.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know we have all that.
There.
We all that hanging over the Star Wars thing. I get it, but I Joseph, we described like a Sixpence None the Richer song needed to start playing. Right? I get it. Jen, I understand.
Yes, that's exactly what I heard in my head.
The glasses
Yeah.
come off.
And the hair shakes out.
Yeah.
Oh my! As they go off in their shuttle. Yeah. No, I that's where my mind went, and I was like, oh, good for them. Good for them. They're gonna get together.
Yeah, you be close in whatever way is appropriate for you. You guys do
Clone
what's
love
good for
story.
you.
Oh my gosh! Wait, make it happen. Make that rom-com happen.
Yeah.
I'd love to see
No,
that.
I mean, yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, we'll do a
Sorry.
whole episode.
We're gonna title this episode "Jennifer Landa Takes It There."
I take it there. Bah, chicka, wah, wah. No,
Yeah.
on a very special episode.
Thank you for taking it there because I had the thought, but I didn't want to bring it up. So thank you. Thank you for the cover.
Just kind of felt right. I don't know.
It did. I think it was just emotionally vulnerable, and we're used to
emotional,
vulnerable
yes.
moments often turning into a lean in for a kiss. And
Sure.
the kids love the enemies to lovers, the clone brother, clone sister coming together. All the old tropes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right. All right. So that's where I went.
Yeah, I really liked Echo's always been on a little bit of his own path of like, I want to fight the Empire. I'll get the clones, and like so I liked him. I liked following up on the Ryu thread, and I liked I didn't need a montage of what professions Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair all take up on Pabu, but I liked that like Echo's. If this is about clones having different agency, we don't know what all these different clones are going to choose. Some of them are going to stay on Pabu. Some of them are going to go off to do who knows what. Echo's going off to maybe rebel a little bit, and then clearly from the dialogue in the coda, Wrecker and Crosshair have been living their lives on Pabu, or at least coming back and forth. So I like that divergence of paths that the clones are taking. Yeah. Any more thoughts on that, Kim, before we move on?
I think Wrecker becomes a fisherman. I think Wrecker's down there fishing.
And I don't think he uses a pole. I think he just dives in and wrestles them and throws them up out of the water.
You can just grab them.
Yeah. He swims, grabs a fish, throws it in the air, and then Crosshair stuns them in midair.
Yeah. Good one, Rick.
The blaster bolt.
I love it.
Yeah, and they like getting small ones. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Omega's future and past. This is, for me, the kind of fun speculation of when we think that final scene is taking place. Partially just because I kind of love this era of storytelling that we've been in for a while now, of the slow build up to the rebellion. She says it's rebellion. It's known. It's organized, right? It's not like there's this cell, or I'm going to join Echo, or I heard a rumor. It's the rebellion, capital R. And she says they need pilots now more than ever, which just made it juicy for me to be like, is this right after Star Wars: A New Hope? Of like, they want a major victory, but they need pilots now. Or is this right after Mothma's speech, where like they need pilots more than ever now? Was really intriguing to me. Ken, what were your thoughts?
I think I went slightly before A New Hope, but I like what you think about New Hope. It just seems like a speech like that from Mothma, or something like right around there when it's really picking up, right? And the cells are merging, and we got uniforms picked out that Omega's like, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to be, and that tracks me. So, but I'm putting it close to that timeline. I'm, Mothma's, I'm not saying after Mothma's speech, but that's what, a year, 2 years out. So Omega confirmed for Andor season 2 right here. We saw it.
Yeah. Jennifer, did you have any feelings about when this is taking place, and in kind of what Omega's role might be in the stories we know so well in that era?
I loved it. And I immediately went, same thing, Ken, right before A New Hope. But I do like the idea that maybe it did happen after A New Hope or during A New
too.
Hope. I don't know. But yeah, that's where I was like, all right, we're gonna get her in live action. This is gonna be amazing. Who's gonna play her? Like that's where my mind went. But yeah, yeah, I don't want it to be one of those moments though where I'm now watching the original trilogy trying to find, like, you know what I mean? Obviously, or yeah, sorry, Ken, go ahead.
No, sorry, I cut you off. But that plays into a long-standing ForceCenter joke and things said elsewhere too. Of around every tree in Endor is a new character we're discovering. That could be said or taken kind of negatively. And I joked with our buddy Alden this morning via text. I said, "So what I'm saying is, I hope Omega dies on Hoth." No, I just. They'll find the right way to put her in, But I think because the OG trilogy kid in me has that thing of like. So Singer, Rathvalis, Rex, Omega, Hera, they were all off camera. And I can I'm totally fine with that. It's not cynical. It's just, all right.
Yeah.
This is where we are because we're blessed with more Star Wars.
People watching Luke's at the funeral pyre, all sorts of stuff, has been added around every tree.
I don't know about that one, but yeah.
Yeah. I tend to, I was trying to think through all of the different points in time, but I tend to think right after Mothma's speech in Rebels, where she's really bringing the cells together and kind of announcing to the galaxy and putting out the call, right? Because it really feels like Omega's been like, I know this is going on. I know the Empire needs to be fought someday, but my family fought forever, and maybe I want to respect the fact that they don't want to get involved, but I can't. Mothma's asking. She's asking for help, and you raised me to stand up. I'm going to stand up. That feels right to me, and I agree. I think I would love to see Omega in live action or an animated spinoff that's all about pilots. I don't need her to be at Hoth. I don't need her to be like, my ship broke, so I couldn't join the battle at Yavin. I don't. It's the Galactic Civil War, and I know the rebellion's relatively small, but there are lots of stories to be told in a galactic civil war that she doesn't have to be at the big battles and sort of crammed into the like just off screen kind of thing. Because I do think that gets stretched a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you both about is we get this time jump, from early on in the Empire's reign, where the happy family sitting there on Pabu, and then Hunter's got some back problems and some gray in his beard, and Omega's all grown up. To me, there's no. I think the immediate emotional reaction is, and so they all sat on Pabu for whatever number of 10 plus years. But there's room for all sorts of stories. There's nothing to say that they weren't involved in the path, that Omega didn't go off in train with Ventress, that they were back and forth from Pabu, that Pabu was invaded 5 times. Like, Ken, how do you feel about the potential for storytelling between that end and that coda?
There were so many tips of the cap to all the things you're talking about and more, where there's so much room to explore that if they want, if it works. Omega, even at the end, it wasn't like you said, well, we've been here for 10 years. I've learned how to fish, and we opened up a shop, and now I want to join the fight. It could be almost like, hey, we went and helped here. We did this kind of micro hope, and I want to be a part of the macro because the galaxy's on fire now, and we, and I need to be there. You fought enough. I love that, which also kind of makes sense with what we had those questions about Rex and Gregor and Wolf and everything. Like that could have been a conversation they had with someone else, maybe even Omega. We have given all we can give, and we'll fight and help in our own ways and get pulled back into the fight as we see with Rex. But there's so much room for storytelling there.
Yeah. Jennifer, how do you feel about that room for storytelling in this last episode?
I would have liked to have seen a montage up
where
it's just music and just them growing up together and living their life. No, I did kind of have that moment where I was like, well, but what happened before? But maybe we'll get it in another form or fashion. Never seen it.
Yeah. How do you want to see these characters again, or any of them, not even necessarily all of them, Jennifer?
Omega live action. Omega's really the only character that I really want to see again. No offense, Bad Batch, but Yeah, I'm okay with closing that chapter. Like, they were wonderful
Yeah.
characters, but let's start a new book, right? And the only
Mhm.
character where I'd like to see a continuation of is Omega for me.
Yeah, because I do feel like, I'm fine that this wasn't about her being force sensitive or not, but I feel like they kind of elegantly left that question open for a story for another time. So I feel like there's more story to be told. Yeah, I want to let stories end, so I'm happy that there's room to tell a story, and I'd be extremely happy if there was, a book 5 years from now that was an adventure that they had, where they left Pabu to help Rex or help, Chuchi or whatever. And we get to learn about Wrecker's fishing business and Hunter's basket weaving business and
Yeah.
what they chose and how and why and all that. I would love that. Ken, do you have any deep desires of who you want to see again and where and when?
I mean, look, I definitely intrigued by the venturous of it all, because they've made us intrigued by not only bringing the character back, but saying, "Oh yeah, don't worry, there's more." So I kind of, I'm a kid in a candy shop, give me the sweets, give me what I want there, and I had that moment. I'm sure I cannot be alone. I know I'm not alone. Of older Omega goes into the cave, and you start to see a ship, and you're like, Ventress is going to be there saying, "All right, welcome back," or "Here we go." And I just didn't know how far
Yeah.
they had leapt the story forward. So I think that exists, but yeah, I don't know if it's a hot take. I just really like that. The training or force or the Jedi of it all wasn't present in Omega's story, at least at this point. And you had a little dance with it, but that this series followed other things. So, but I'd be open to that going forward. I do, Rex and Echo and tying to the path and all that stuff. I think I have a desire to see it in some way, but it doesn't have to be centered on them.
Yeah, I would love some path storytelling and exactly when and how and where. That'd be great. But that's less about a continuation of these characters. We always want to be sure to talk about some favorite moments. We talk about the big ideas, but there's also just lots of fun comedy, action, great shots, all that kind of stuff. So, Kenware, what were some moments that you enjoyed specifically from this big finale?
Oh God, there's so much, right? You can just put a general stamp on all of it, but I'll start with Nalase. So in the world of pro wrestling, there's a chant that crowds do sometimes at more extreme matches. So someone jumps off top of a cage onto a bed of barbed wires, and they all chant, "He's hardcore, he's hardcore." Nalase, I was chanting, "She's hardcore, she's hardcore." Everything about that moment, the choice she made, and again, like you touched on earlier, Joseph and Jennifer, I think she says she's going to go do something, grabs a thermal detonator. This is what's going to happen, but it plays out in such a wonderful way that Rampart's the only one surprised, right? The Rampart's like, why would you want to destroy this kind of valuable information? It was a good ending to a tragic character, right? But who is also one of the last of these people, so to speak. I'm sure I can follow the idea that others from Camino survived, but in a way, it was the closing of that chapter, and it was the right way that this stays with them and her. Loved it. Hardcore moment indeed.
A great final last words from Rampart to be what? He doesn't even get to the T before the explosion. That was a favorite moment within the hardcore. You got some more, Ken?
Absolutely. Can we just say the Zillow Beast stamping things, and we can all go into our individual moments. But I do want to highlight, and I you touched on it too, Joseph. But what a beautiful shot of a beast free again, going into the moonlight in a jungle to explore their life as they choose. It was such a wonderful moment. Wonderful moment. Loved the Zillow Beast.
Yeah, like this episode was about leaving for your future in the moonlight, because both Zillow Beast and Omega do it. I loved the Zillow Beast. I think throughout the episode there was lots of images that made you feel the idea, and I think the Zillow Beast bursting free from containment again and again. The kind of cleansiness of being in the rain, even the sort of the Nalase's explosion. These are all images of catharsis and release and resistance, and the great straightforward kaiju music with big blaring horns for the Zillow Beast. But I think my favorite shot was just when he first the Zillow Beast pops her head out and has that big nostril breath where he just breathes angrily, wafts out, and then just eats a trooper. That's great stuff. And great joke from Jax about Baron. when the Zilbeast is rampaging and says, "This puts him to sleep." Great joke. What are some moments for you, Jennifer?
The Zillobeast, 100%. It felt very much like Jurassic Park, from the tropical environment to the rain later on that we see in the episode to this monster that's escaped and terrorizing people. Except this time it's a good thing, like Jurassic Park. But that was a favorite thing for me. Second favorite thing was the cry of Baron. My pet peeve with movies and TV shows is when they have a baby and the baby doesn't cry and is just happily sleeping or whatever. That is not real life. I was like, if Baron doesn't cry, I will lose my faith in this show. But Baron cried and it became a crucial moment. And I was so happy. I'm like, yes, that's why I love this show.
Yeah.
Even in the small moments like that, it's very real.
Yeah. Baron was a little rock star, laughing at Dr. Scalder falling over too.
Yep.
That was great.
Yeah.
I played for a minute of making our thumbnail a screenshot of Baron crying because it was just such a great shot. But then it was too sad. Anyway.
And again, shout out to Shelby Young, who's good at crying, I guess we could say.
Yeah. Great crying. There were some great comedy moments for me from the batch, and I think I would have Wrecker didn't have as much to do this season, or Hunter, but they both had some great moments. I really love the crosshair exchange of, "Did you think wrestling that creature was a good idea?" At the time, yes. It's great.
It's one of my life mottos, quite frankly.
Yeah. You have that one on your list, I take it, Ken?
I literally put that, like, that is sometimes, I'm not saying this in a good way, how I live my life. Does it seem like a good idea? Well, yeah, at the time, I did it. Now, it wasn't, sorry.
Yes, just trying to be bold, tackling a beast.
Yep.
The thing that made me laugh out loud and make me worry that I woke my wife at 12:30 or whatever was when they're looking up at the Zillobeast and Crosshair echoes handiwork or Omegas, and Hunter and Wrecker in unison saying Omega. That was a great comedy moment and just like a great family moment. Like, yeah, we know our sister. Any animal she's gonna release. Yeah. I love that moment. Jennifer, any other moments that you wanted to highlight?
Not that I can think of. Oh, I did love the no music when Hemlock got shot. It was just silent, and it was like, let's have a moment of silence for this awful man. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You don't deserve music, Hemlock. Yeah.
Sorry. I love the death of Hemlock. I want to talk about the death of Scorch. But I think, to me, Hemlock's true final moment was earlier in the episode, because this is a Dr. Hemlock's no good, very bad day scenario going on. And each time it's getting worse, each rumble in the jungle, he's like, but when Omega says, I didn't even write down the quote because I just loved it so much, but the "you failed." That's his end. That's his end, because he knows it. Everything else is just scraping to hang on. And so to have that death be somewhat unceremonious, right? No big final words, nothing. Shot, you fall to your death, and somewhere text going, yeah.
Yep. He's on plan D by the time it's not working out there for him, and he has to fall. It's so great. Talk to us about Scorch, Ken.
Look, I like the Clone Commandos. I love that they're there. I didn't play the games that involved them, and I didn't read all the books that had them, and I understand people's connections, and I'm a complicated relationship with the EU. I'm putting aside to say I get it. I think they're a great design. But I also think they're designed from another era. They're a design from, hey, what if you took human growth hormones, steroids, and got big and bulky and strong and cool? And I do think they kind of represent a badass take that doesn't always connect with me. But at the same time, they look badass, and they're skilled. I like that Scorch had no redemption. There isn't no turnaround. Wait, these are my brothers too. He died. And speaking to what you said, Jen, earlier about, this team of Rambos at the beginning, they became something else. They represent all the things Garza Whip says to Black Cassette in that speech I love. about what was once championed is not anymore, and it's not shared, and you got to evolve and you got to change. And Scorch represents someone who did not change to me, and I don't want anyone to come at me and be upset. I do love the design, and I do love the connections people have to them, and I know there's some hot, passionate takes about Scorch. I've seen him, not even today, but I'm talking about this season. But he didn't get a redemption moment. He died because he should have. He didn't change. He represents something from the past.
Yeah, we don't know. Did he choose? Was he successfully conditioned? You know, it wasn't about Scorch ultimately.
It wasn't about Scorch.
Had to go with which looked like the blaster version of a shotgun. Those really big burns on his big chest.
Ouch.
And then
yep.
Hello Fallen. A couple of other action beats for me that I enjoyed. Even though the scene of the mirror batch, the Mad Batch coming down on him was really scary. There's that great shot where the four Mad Batch clone X troopers all came together. It was kind of a hero shot. It's beautifully composed, and it would have been a hero shot if it was literally reversed and the Bad Batch was standing that direction triumphantly. But I loved how outmatched they were, and there were yet some cool moments in that with I really liked when Crosshair fired the sticky bomb on the Bruiser's shield.
Oh, it's a great comedy moment too. Like,
yep. And all, I mean, the fights with them were really brutal, really violent. You know, really both the fights made me feel like anybody could go, more limbs could go. But I liked that the way the Bad Batch mostly took them down by fighting together, by like trading off and having each other's back. And the big final moment where Hunter speared, I believe CX2. With the pole was a cool act moment for Hunter, and a part of me expected him to walk up and like take off the helmet and go, "Huh, reg."
Yep.
But what really made that all work for me is I felt like this episode reminded us again and again that what Hemlock was doing was conditioning, was trying to break the will of clones, and like we don't need to know it's a clone he broke the will of or cloned. You know, to never have a will, you know. So I really like those action moments because they were cool, but they also supported the point of the CX troopers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other moments for you, Ken?
Two. Well, all through it, there's so many lines I mentioned up top. That's why I like this episode, so I don't need to go through them all. But even Omega saying, "You're forgetting one thing. I have them." I was like, "Ooh, sick burn." You know, here we go. But thematically rich, of course, but fun moments. Two quick little moments. They're action and comedy. The nurse droid attacking Dr. Skalder was hilarious to me. Just that funny comedy. Also, I like when they cut from the Zillo Beast with the door. I love when you do that in movies where it's like and you don't hear anything. Yep. But the final moment, it was so endearing. Eva, right? That's her name. One of the kids loading up and just strapping Lula, should say, to her back and kind of looking over. I love that moment.
Yeah, I'm so glad to know Lula's safe. I really liked Ava's line right at the beginning of "You want us to do what?" It's so small and so innocent. Other comedy line I liked because it almost could be said more in Star Wars. When Emery tells Echo it's Project Necromancer, and Echo's immediate reaction was like, "Well, don't like the sound of that." For me, I kind of felt like we've been making jokes for years about called the Death Star. He named it that on purpose. Like, how does he expect people to react to that? You know, how does that look on a budget? So I like somebody, responding to like, "I'm sorry, this is called Operation Big Kill Death Go." What? Like, come on.
It's called a killer laser? Wait a minute. Yeah, and I think it's a fun tradition and should be played with. And I like that moment.
Any other moments for you, Jennifer?
Nope. The last thing I'll say is the music. I really loved the music overall, specifically on the bridge right before Hemlock's silent death. It was like strings in the music, and it felt very much like a thriller, like from the 80s, 90s. It just was really, really cool. I think overall this series has had some great music.
No, and it's been experimental and bold, and I loved working in the actual, the Bad Batch end credits theme into, the moment where Omega's, getting the kids going and opening up the shaft and all that. It's great. Final thing for me, the Bad Batch and clone shuttle leaving just as the Star Destroyer arrives, and I think the Star Destroyer looking very original trilogy Rogue One with that bright color, great. And final thing for me is it was great to see that Gonki was still there, still holding on, going on a mega adventures. She's going to be getting an X-wing and refitting it so a power droid can be her astromech.
Oh God, yeah.
But final thing for me is I'm so glad that Tech's goggles were there. That was just such a perfect tribute to the character, and to Omega not wanting to leave that behind was just beautiful.
I champion this show for making the decision, a hard one, to take us all through the loss of that character, and we absolutely had some questions about how he could come back. Tech 2.0, your haunting idea, Joe, all that stuff could have worked. It could have worked. I think it was a solid choice to be like, that was a loss, and we felt it, and we're going to continue to feel it and look forward with hope as best we can in this series. I thought it was well played and well done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's some of that the really hard stuff that makes the beautiful stuff sing even more.
Yep.
Was there anything, Jennifer, that you disliked or questioned in the episode that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I don't think so. Overall, it was really, really well done.
Awesome. Ken, anything you disliked or questioned?
Look, they left some questions on the table, and that you could look at that and be like, you gave us a hint of a meal, and the meal's not there, and I think we have a lot of faith in future storytelling, but not all of it's going to be answered. I think you just have to assume, even the Choochie of it all, the Chooch coming in there, and she's got some work to do in the growing rebellion path, all that stuff. As the episode started, I think even going into this week, we all that thought of like, I'm just gonna have to release my desire for that knowledge, because I do want it. Like I keep saying, I do want it. It's fun to know. I love going in universe and just playing this out like a living history document. So I do want those answers. The show chose not to answer them, and I might have had some questions about that going into this season, but I'm happy with where it's at.
Yeah, I think this season in particular really had a strong focus on Omega. And it felt to me going into this episode, whether it was going to be 24 minutes or 87 or the 51 it ended up being with credits, that it was going to be focused on Omega. So I'm fine with other questions and ideas being sort of tip of the iceberg. They were fired off by this. I would love to know more about Emery. Not so much of like, I love everything we need to know for this story. We know, but the whole idea of like a sister exists, maybe more. How do people feel about that? Can they date? All those important questions. I would like to know more about that, because it's a big and important introduction. I love the story of the clones, and I know we have the clone, the trans clone named Sister in publishing, but I would like to explore more the idea that how many of them exist or is it just Emery, and how does she feel about that? So that story's for another time. I loved everything we ended up getting with the CX Troopers. I do feel like a little bit of the storytelling in mid-season was wobbly, and we're having this really hard time in pop culture where the relationship between creators and audience, where audiences want to guess, and even when creators don't intend to make a mystery or a guessing game, we the fans make it. And I think that makes creators' jobs even harder to indicate when we intend something to be a mystery or not. I almost just wish they popped that CX2's helmet off early on and just let us see he's a reg who got manipulated or brainwashed, so we could more successfully skip the mystery dance. Not really criticism of this episode, but an ongoing question for me about how creators handle fans' deep desire to turn everything into a mystery and guessing game. And I'm not sure. I wish it had been cut off at the knees earlier, since that was the point of the CX Troopers. Of that, they're just dark mirrors, and it worked. It worked very well. We talked about the CX2 being a dark mirror of Crosshair in those episodes. Emotionally, everything about them worked, but then there was this sort of niggling distraction of is this who's under the helmet mystery?
Yep, I agree there, and it's a bigger conversation, and long form storytelling's been in debate, and there's things about and there's some things I can't help, and again, people are going to say again like, well, Jennifer Corbett did say, and she did say, but it wasn't in story, there's still fun wiggle room, and I'm with you on that too.
And that
But
was
it
in
ends up
response
beautiful.
to, is this the same CX Trooper we saw before? No, it's a
Right.
new character. New
Okay.
CX Trooper doesn't,
Yeah.
you know. And I don't know how many people are out there flipping tables because it wasn't Cody. You know.
I've seen a few of it. I've seen a few, but it's like, yeah. Again, it's a bigger 9-part documentary series that needs to be made.
It really is, and I'd happily do a larger other center, you know,
Mhm.
because I think it's a fascinating question how to deal with that dance.
Mhm.
Ken, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
Jed touched upon the music. The Kiner family just absolutely doing some of their best work. I really think Rebels season 3, Rebels season 4 comes to mind, but just this is some of their best work, and they're beloved for a reason. And the music continues to just take it all home. And yeah, I think we're going to be unpacking this series for a while, and we can always come back and discuss it. I'm still processing it. This has just been a joy. I think this is 3 years of my favorite Star Wars storytelling. I think it does things. It's connected to different parts of canon. It has emotional canon through lines. It takes the pulp. It takes the serious. It takes the political. Puts it in your face. It takes the emotional. All these other shows have done this in wonderful ways as well, to be clear. But I think this one just had the right mix, and combined with the idea that, like you, Jen, and like Joseph and I talked to Clone Wars season 7. Do we want to see the A-Team in space? We'll see. And that's a lesson to always remind myself to sit back and just see what you feel. And it's just great.
Exactly. Anything else that you wanted to touch on, Jennifer?
No, I think we've covered it. It's just incredible that this is the end, so to speak. But it's been a really satisfying ride, and I'm glad that you all encouraged me to stick with it, because honestly, I probably would not have. But I feel like it's some of the best Star Wars storytelling that we've gotten, even against live action. Some of the most best writing, the best acting, right? So yeah, it's tough to beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle Yang, we got a shout out. Just an amazing job. They will study and should study D. Bradley Baker in this show.
Yeah.
Because I cannot tell you how many times that I just never thought that it was one person. It was individuals.
Incredible.
And I think people compliment D. Bradley Baker, understandably, because he's doing this sort of the voice acting version of, the big drama moment that gets you the Oscar. He's playing multiple characters, right? And he should be lauded, and screw the rules. He should get an Academy Award.
Yeah.
But to really just highlight the absolute power of the charm of the performance of Omega, taking her through all that growth. But there was a lot lined up against her. People certainly of our generation, and I think probably younger, have an instant is this a cute kid story? And cast against anybody who wanted them to be the macho A-Team. And on top of that resistance that some people have to the cute kid part of the story, there was also, as soon as it started, it was we're knee deep in the Mandalorian that is about a badass becoming a dad. Is that what this is? And I think it was not only the writing, but the utter charm of her performance, the humanity of it. There's nothing tropey about it. Totally unique. Like that's a kid who lives next to you. The power of the performance of Omega, I think, is one of the just huge selling points of this show. That makes it, to me, a hangout show of just I'd watch her, just be a card shark for 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Be charming. Why not? Be
Indeed.
Great. Yeah, this has been an amazing run, an amazing show. And I think to me, there are many different ways to approach storytelling, and many different ways to talk about Star Wars in particular, and different parts to highlight, and the action and the comedy and the themes and all that. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is, what did it make you feel? And I think this show, in the way it told its story, slowed down at the right times, used every tool in its disposal, the music, the actors' performances, the sites and the settings that were chosen, the lighting, to just make you feel what the characters were feeling. So even episodes where in the first 2 minutes, you're I get what's going on emotionally. I am not surprised by any event that has happened. It still is an amazing ride because it makes you feel it, do the absolute triumph of what art should do is make you feel it. And I thought this finale did exactly that. Maybe we didn't have a lot of huge surprises, but we were made to feel it, and it was art and a great tribute to Bad Batch.
Indeed, absolutely. Art.
All right. We end, as always, by talking about fun of a figure or merch of any character idea from this episode. Who or what would you want, Ken?
I want a Zillow Beast costume for dogs. Partner with Chewy if you got to. And Chewy.com. And then I want to put that on a Chihuahua because my Chihuahua Francis thinks she's a Zillow Beast. So let's do it.
I understand. I'd go for the Zillow Beast alarm clock. I think that would be fun. Yep. A little roar, a little air from the nostrils. Jennifer, what would you like?
They have Disney babies in the Disneyland store on Main Street where there's like Stitch, but like in a little swaddle or, Arista, whatever her name is. Anyways, I want Baron in the little swaddle as a little baby.
Yeah.
Stuffed animal.
And also Sid, because I think that'd make her real mad.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the last time I'll get to say it. So the merch I really want is vintage collection 3 3/4 action figures of the entire batch. HasLab is rattling the saber that they're going to announce a new big HasLab project, and there's some suspicion, hope that it will be the Havoc Marauder, hopefully with action figures. So maybe that dream will be answered. But for now, we are wrapping up our coverage of Bad Batch. Ken, do you want to take us home?
Yeah, thanks for everyone going on the journey with us as we went on the journey with this show. The Bad Batch report is wrapped for now. We'll look back, and who knows how we revisit this show. But you can follow us on social media at ForceCenter Pod on all the sites, including Instagram. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. YouTube, hey, if you're watching here, subscribe. We'd love that. If you're listening on the podcast feed, thank you. We can be found as a podcast in a lot of spots like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Podcasts. Just search. You'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Get that Speculate Responsibly shirt and keep speculating just responsibly so you don't hurt yourself. You can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. As of the release of this episode, still got a couple days left in my website shop before I have to shut it down. So you want to get a personalized copy of my book, Why We Love Star Wars? Now is the time. And so it is, as Bail Organa would say. So that's me. Jen, where can I find you?
You can find me on all the social media sites at Jennifer Landa or TikTok for now at Jennifer Landa 1138.
Who knows about the future of many social media for lots of different reasons. You can find me on most social media right now, including TikTok. Maybe I'll make some more videos soon, but I am also on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Threads, all sorts of places. My handle is at Joseph Scrimshaw everywhere, and you can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, to see where the short horror film we made, The Nightmare Adorable, is playing this weekend in particular. It is in Seattle at a horror convention called Crypticon Seattle, playing in the 9 p.m. block on Saturday, May 4th, Star Wars Day. I will be there. If you want to attend the convention and want to see a fun horror movie, please come say hello. But that is it for me. Information again on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. That is it for the Bad Batch report.